Today we talk about Star Trek The Adventure game. This is a game from a couple of decades ago, and it is a game that was one of the gifts from my Board Game Geek Secret Santa, whom I want to thank, whomever you are. Thank you for this gift, which I enjoyed very much. This Star Trek game is based on the classic, the original Star Trek series, which to me is pretty much the only one that matters, and it allowed me to recapture some of the joy and pleasure that I derived from the original series, from those iconic characters, from those phenomenally creative situations, which really are well captured in the game. This is a game that can be played by one or two players. I only played it in solitaire, and it works very well that way. In any case, here you see the board. The board, which here I have set up on my overcrowded desk to play the game in solitaire mode during the breaks from the intense preparation that I've been doing for the semester. Classes are starting next week, but I have been able to carve out some time to play some Star Trek The Adventure game from time to time. The board is divided in three areas: a Federation area, Federation home area, Klingon home area, and a neutral area. And the neutral area is the one that contains the unexplored planets that the two players or the solitaire player are trying to influence and to convince to get into their own sphere of influence. You start the game with 4 starships that you place in your home area. You can place them in star bases, like in that case, or in planets, on planets with a level of civilization which is AA. The letters by the name of the planets indicates the level of civilization. AA planets are the only one that are suitable to place your ships on at the beginning of the game. You also have 2 star bases that you place on the map in the neutral area, and those can be useful later. There are also some player aids with important tracks, and here I place them on a magnetic board so I can have them handy when I need them, and I can put them away when I'm not playing the game and I need the desk for other things. You have a game turn track, political track, reputation track. These are tracks where you will want to have good scores because that's what you're trying to do, to influence planets and politically and to gain reputation. And also here you have displays indicating the status of your starships. You have 7 officers which you can distribute on your starships. You do not have to place one on each. For example, here I don't have anybody on the Beijing. Characters represent classic characters: Kirk, Spock, Uhura. And on the back of the counters representing the characters, you have the special abilities that the characters have. Kirk, for example, has charisma, Uhura has communication, Spock has science, pretty much the things that you would get to expect. Each starship also has an amount of security officers, and you keep track of the amount of security officers that you have by using these markers here. You have boxes for landing parties. When you reach a new planet, you decide to explore it, then you form a landing party, which is represented by the counters that you move in that box. You can place commissioned officers that you will need to perform tasks, but it's also good to have security officers around pretty much to absorb casualties. So what I do is, say I want to send 2 security officers with that landing party, then I take down that by 2 for remaining on the ship, and I place these 2 generic counter holders here just to represent 2 security officers on the planet. Because the security officers are generic abstract characters that are there to, to die, just to tell you that the situation is serious, just like it happened in the good old TV show. And they're just good to absorb casualties so that your officers can continue surviving and and perform well in their adventures. In any case, this is how this display works. Each turn you start by rolling dice to determine whether or not there are going to be random events, and if random events happen, then you have to resolve those. Then you can move any and all of your ships from X to X up to 12 hexes, and what you're trying to do is to reach planets that then you will explore in the following phase in the turn. However, after you move, you have to roll a die for each ship that you moved, and if you rolled less than the number of axes that you moved, then the source of energy for the starship is exhausted. From that moment on, the starship can move only up to 2 axes. You don't roll dice anymore, and you need to reach a civilized planet or a star base to replenish the dilithium, the exhausted dilithium in your starship, but it takes a full turn to do that. After you moved your ships, you can perform one exploration. So you choose the starship that is an unexplored planet and the starship with which you want to perform an exploration. You draw from this cup a counter that represents the planet that you just found. Say that we just found this planet here. Here you have the name of the planet, a letter indicating the level of civilization. And after you do that and you find the planet, you found the planet that you're going to explore, then you look at the paragraph book, which is the one that contains the adventures. You have an initial double page here with a brief introduction of each planet, and after you read the description of the planet you reach, you roll a die. Well, first you form a landing party. If you decide to land on the planet, then you roll a die and you're directed to a paragraph that will start the story. From that moment on, the game continues as a traditional paragraph-based game. You will be asked to make choices. Sometimes some choices will be available to you based on the abilities of the characters in your landing party. And after a couple of paragraphs, you may end your adventure exploration on that planet in success, in failure. The result of your actions will usually be a modification on the political track and on the reputation track. Your turn, of course, to get positive results in each. Sometimes you will perform actions that will lower your reputation but increase your political influence, or the other way around. Very often, either you improve both or you worsen both if you really mess up. Other stuff may happen. Commissioned officers may die, but if you had to take casualties, then you want to assign those to your generic security officers first. You may get your starship destroyed. There are just many things that may happen depending on the adventure. I don't want to get into too many details here also because I don't want to give you spoilers. And this is pretty much the core idea of the one-player game, of the solitaire game. You play for 10 turns, at the end of which you see your score in reputation and political points, and you need to have a certain minimum amount of points on each track to win the game. And you can increase that required amount of points to make the game harder after you get to know the system. In the two-player game, things work slightly differently because you have extra things that you can do. There are extra types of officers that you can send on your planets that you can use to perform actions. The Federation has high officers that can influence the situation on the planets politically. The Klingons have agents that can perform sabotage or assassination. There are just more ways to mess up the plans that your opponent is trying to accomplish. Also, I believe that the map becomes more challenging in a two-player game because as planets start being explored by your opponent, then sometimes you will have to travel for longer stretches of distances, and that increases the chances that your delirium gets exhausted. So I just believe that the map is certainly more exciting, more problematic, and forces you to make tougher decisions if you're playing against an opponent too, and not just against the system. But the game works perfectly well as a solitaire game too, as a paragraph-based solitaire game. So Conclusions. As a solitaire game, which is the only way in which I played this game, this is a game that I enjoyed very much. As I said, the map maybe is not as relevant in that way as it is in the two-player game, because very often you will still be able to perform something with your starships, even if one is destroyed, one is stuck somewhere. But you still have challenges there, because sometimes the only ship that you have available to perform an exploration is a ship that doesn't have any good officers on it. Managing your officers, which you can transfer from ship to ship, of course, is part of the game. The adventures themselves are incredibly thematic. If you remember the episodes of the old TV show, then actually sometimes you will have hints, because they're just so close to those episodes. You simply remember the situation. And I do not know about that. Sometimes I had the feeling that the game felt a little bit like a trivia game because of that, where knowledge of the original situation lifted from the TV show really helped in making the right decisions. On top of that, you also have to kind of think in a role-playing type of mentality. If you're the Federation and you act like the Federation, then you're more likely to succeed. There's a little bit of a random factor, of course, from the moment in which you roll the die to determine the situation that you encounter on the planet, to other cases in which it seems very hard to make the right choice based on information you have, and therefore you kind of like just try to guess, but the result may go either way. I do not know that in all cases you really had a chance of figuring out, deducting, foreseeing what was going to happen next. But that being said, this is certainly a game that is very thematic. This is a game that I enjoy playing as a solitaire game. It really delivered what I expected and what I hoped that this game would deliver to me, which is travel back in time, not just in space, travel back in time to rediscover those episodes of the old TV show that I enjoyed so much, those situations, those characters. The game is a triumph of theme, no doubt about that. It can be more or less hard to win depending on the level of victory that you set for yourself, but that you can easily change. You can make the game as hard or as easy as you want. So it is a game that I enjoyed. I do not know that just a paragraph game like this one nowadays would be appealing to many people, but if you like the theme, if you like the old TV show, if you like these characters, if you like the situations that those characters used to face in those phenomenally creative TV show episodes, then I think you're really going to enjoy this game. It can still be found online. You can find copies in several locations. This is a great thing of the net that connects us to each other, but also to old stuff. And, well, thank you, Secret Santa Board Game Geek, for giving me this game. It is one that I enjoyed. I enjoyed the explorations that I have attempted so far, and I play mainly as the Federation. There's still more fun to be had after I play as the Klingon. After a while, of course, I will have to stop because I will get to know all the planets, and then I'll put it back on the shelf, and maybe in a couple of years I'll pull it down from the shelf too, and I enjoyed it again. So far, in any case, for a fan of the old Star Trek TV show, this is a game that is extremely enjoyable. As a solitaire, it is enjoyable too, and I believe that you can enjoy it very much as a two-player game too.